Hey everybody, Evan Kirstel here with another fantastic discussion on my favorite topic, telecom and networking today with Chris Johnson, SVP at Nokia for Enterprise. Chris, how are you?
I'm very well, Evan. Great to be here with you today. Yeah, looking forward to our discussion.
I am as well, and I've been following you and your career at Nokia for some time, so I'm really excited to dive in around the evolution of the world's most critical networks, a topic that should be top of mind to everyone in this space today. Before that, maybe introduce yourself, a little bit about your background and your role at Nokia.
Very good. Thanks, Evan. Yeah, no, I'm 6 years with Nokia. I'm running the enterprise business, which loosely classified as everything that's not a telco service provider, if you like. As I say, I've been doing this for 6 years. Very, very interesting evolution of networking over this period. We're going to talk about mission critical today, but of course, embracing Industry 4.0. The evolution is a fascinating subject. So yeah, really, really pleased to be here talking about this with you today.
Yeah, likewise. And, the pandemic brought home the criticality of networks and networking, not just for consumers, but for businesses of all sizes. And particular, in this disaster-prone world we find ourselves in, we're taking a fresh look at mission critical networks. So how do you frame this discussion? How would you describe the importance of networking and Maslow's hierarchy of needs? It used to be something like, a light switch, you turn it on, you turn on the water, it's there, you sort of take it for granted. But can we take this for granted moving forward in the way we have for so many decades?
And of course, the answer is no way can we take it for granted. Connectivity is really underpinning everything. Mission critical, even human critical networks are a big part of our daily life and a bigger part of our future lives. And just to sort of frame it up a bit, we're talking about a range of topics from kind of submarine cables, that brings the internet across the world, through optical transport, IP MPLS, data center networks, and ultimately wireless networks. So Nokia is very involved in this, and it's all about really supporting life as we know it now and in the future, whether you're a consumer, a business, a government. It's underpinning the economy, even underpinning society, and it becomes more and more important to what we do. Why? Because we're dealing with just avalanches of data, trying to connect trying to host this in data centers in the cloud, trying to transport this data around the place, trying to process at the edge. There's a whole myriad of topics that start to become very dependent upon great connectivity. The whole artificial intelligence debate that's really hot at the moment is heavily reliant on lots of connectivity, augmented reality for industry, virtual reality, machine learning. The list of acronyms and buzzwords goes on, but nevertheless, the digitization of networks is going at some pace, Evan. And as I said, it's a really exciting place to be right now.
It is exciting, and as geeks, we like to be at the cutting edge of innovation. I'm at VMware's Explore event this week in Las Vegas, and we love to talk about these advanced use cases of Industry 4.0 and manufacturing, and we love to look towards the future. But there are a lot of industries and parts of the economy that perhaps are being left behind. And we don't tend to think of them as leading edge, cutting edge, but they're so fundamental to supply chain, to transportation, to who we are. How do you look at the leaders and the laggards, and how can we get those? What are those industries that may need catching up, as it were?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Mission critical networks. There's all the kind of, dare I say, sexy sort of industrial use cases that are coming out, largely relating to improving productivity for those industries, and that's a super important subject. But the kind of backbone mission critical networks that sustain our transport networks, our energy supply, our government services are very, very important, and they're going through a transformation. And I think some of the things that we see as we sort of poll our customers and understand our customers is there are certain blockers. The kind of physical environments are sometimes, the remoteness of some of the needs of these networks and connectivity, the human safety aspects, the complexity of deploying networks, in some of these environments is one of the blockers. The volume of data, right, and the number of sources of data is something that tends to be, kind of a blocker to some organisations getting started. I wouldn't call them laggards, by the way, but just a kind of slow down the progress in getting started. I think the cybersecurity, and I think I want to talk to you about cybersecurity later, but this is clearly a big threat. And as we build more complex, more sophisticated networks, does that open us to more threat? This is sometimes a blocker. Resistance to change, right? Simple things like people and organizations just doing the things the way they did it. And some of the more traditional organization, maybe the railways, the government institutions, the old ways of thinking have been developed over decades, right? So changing that is a mindset shift. And then managing the ecosystem. What we found in connectivity and mission-critical networks is that the ecosystem of providers, components, specialities that need to come together in a sophisticated mission-critical network has grown. So managing that is more complex, right? So these are some of the things that we find our customers and organizations feeling a block to, and I think we have advice, which is don't be of course don't be scared, right? There are tried and tested ways of doing things now. There's the best cases in all of the technology domains, best practice that we can adopt and apply to different parts of the mission critical network landscape. We can tailor what sort of data require, very specific data collection that's appropriate to a particular organization. There are security best practices that we can narrow the risk around, and good communication and sort of ecosystem management, but also including our own organizations in great communication are ways of getting a movement forward. So yes, there are blockers, but for sure we know how to try and get these projects started and organizations moving, for sure.
That's exciting. So when I think of Nokia networks, I think of 5G cores, and I think of radio access and all the cool things that the carriers deploy with you. But I wasn't aware of your work in mission critical networking with utilities and railways and public safety. So you help them in the digitization of their infrastructure as well as the carriers. Is that how you work within Nokia?
And this is, a major part of our strategy, right? Which is to grow our business with enterprise, and that is the biggest, fastest growing piece of our business today. We've actually been dealing with mission critical networks outside of telco for more than a decade, and the breadth of our portfolio, across fixed and mobile networking types, really allows us to build more complete solutions for these customers. But I'll give you a couple of examples. We're working very much in railways. Some while ago, like 12 or 14 years ago, a 2G railway telecommunication standard was developed in Europe, and we've been very busy rolling out telecoms to railways, literally worldwide. Huge responsibility, right, to manage that infrastructure in a really safe way. So that's been something we specialize in, and we're helping the railways evolve now to their 5G. Sort of leapfrogging to the 5G networks of the future, a big responsibility, but we've got a lot of experience there. We're also working with a lot of government institutions, the police force, for example, building public safety networks. And again, the evolution of the police network is massive. You can imagine shifting from kind of plain old push to talk kind of services over a private network to really enhanced video services for modern crime prevention and managing disaster situations, collaborating teams of people together. So public safety is another really big area for us. And one area that's exploding, Evan, right now is energy utilities. So we're building a full-blown national network in Germany for the energy utilities across the country. So their own dedicated private wireless network, it's called 450 Connect. To help those energy utilities be way more efficient, safer, and provide better service across their energy distribution network. And this is a trend that's going from country to country. In fact, a lot of governments are allocating spectrum specifically for the energy utilities. It's an important national infrastructure, right? So this is a big new trend and a lot of activity in the US, and I'll probably give you some examples a bit later. But these are foundational networks that sort of humanity is based on. And again, yes, the new industrial stuff is exciting, but these foundational mission critical networks are also evolving super quick.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I can't wait to chat about some more details. We need help in the US here with the infrastructure around railway and the shift to green energy. New approaches are needed, not just for the infrastructure, but the communications around it. And also digitization, modernization of these industries. It's not just for efficiency and productivity, right? I mean, you have to stay ahead of the security curve. What's your take on that, given the plague of ransomware and other cyber attacks, cyber breaches in the headlines every day? I mean, it's one thing if the cyber crime, if you have money stolen from banks, of course, terrible stuff. But we're talking about mission critical providers in healthcare, transportation, your power utility provider. I mean, these are dangerous kind of scenarios that we're looking at, are they not?
Yeah, and I think we've done a huge amount of work to give up, get to a kind of a zero trust, what we call a zero trust environment with connectivity for mission critical networks. There's a lot of advancements in a thing called quantum computing, right, which is shifting forward from zeros and ones, as I understand it with my limited technical ability, to something much more radical and scaled in terms of compute. That's really opening up a world of possibilities in, financial markets, with healthcare, and any industry or research department that has masses and masses of data. We're going to reach a point now where there's literally, huge leaps forward in terms of how that data can be processed. The flip side of this, of course, is that this scale of compute allows hackers and cyber criminals to hack faster, right? To break codes, to attack, and this is kind of the problem we're trying to address. And so what we've been doing with our optical networks is building in some kind of quantum computing, zero risk technology, so that we can get ahead of the curve. And thankfully, we don't see these kind of quantum cyber security attacks right now, but we're preparing for them. And a lot of the analysts in the industry would say that we're probably 5-6 years away from some of this happening. But it's our responsibility now to make mission critical, human critical networks, society critical networks function in a hyper protected way. So this is a really big deal, and one that we at Nokia take super seriously. We're building a lot of features into our products to counter this.
That's amazing, and the time is now. I mean, it's not just cyber criminals doing this; it's state actors, and state actors have a particular interest in utilities and government organizations and defense assets. And as a country, Finland knows a lot about that, among other things. What is Q Day? I heard something about Q Day and how industries are using it to think about mission critical networks and security around them. Is that sort of an awareness building exercise?
This is like the Q Day is this day in the future, maybe 2030, let's say, that we're all trying to anticipate. But the key with security and cyber is to try and stay ahead. The hackers, of course, are trying to stay ahead of the remediators, and we as technologists need to stay ahead of the hackers. And this is, the Q Day is really something that we're aiming to avoid by being super proactive. And for example, in the old world, perhaps we've always been protecting data in flight, network data in flight as a methodology. And kind of the brute force of quantum computing and a Q Day event could break in minutes, right? Rather than something that would have taken thousands of years to figure out in the old world. So quantum safe networks are something that we're trying to counter the Q Day effect with. As I say, we're at the forefront in the optical network space, the transport network space, where we've got some features built in, and this will become an ongoing task, right, to make sure that networks and mission critical networks in particular are protected.
Yeah, I think a lot about these topics lately with all of the disaster events happening around the world, particularly here in the US with wildfires, with the terrible situation that happened in Maui with floods and hurricanes and all these catastrophes. And it strikes me, I can't speak for Europe or the rest of the world, but in the US, we are not prepared communications wise to deal with these challenges. Just looking at the legacy of PSAPs, the 911 access centers kind of designed and built, most of them in the 70s or 80s. Do you get involved in updating, enhancing, securing these kind of infrastructures too?
We do, and this is some really cool advancements here. So you mentioned fires, right? The world is seeing a lot of forests burning down, and actually in California, you'll probably know this, but in California, there's obviously a history of major fire disasters, and actually the electric utility folks are held to task by the government. Sometimes in the past, the wooden poles carrying the electricity have collapsed and started the fires, and this creates a massive insurance premium for Californian electric suppliers. And so what we've done, part of the implementation of full-blown wireless networks, I talked about 450 Connect in Germany, and we're starting to roll this out across the utilities in North America, full-blown 4G networks to support some very smart features, which would allow us to sense movement on a wooden traditional pole, and sense when it's reaching a certain threshold where we believe it may be falling, and cut the energy supply at that point.
That is
so the
amazing.
Ability to use networks to really impact a super difficult situation, and this is one example, I guess, of how we're trying to impact the world. I think another North American example might be the rollout of kind of infrastructure. The idea that internet connection and connectivity is almost a human right these days. But it's been underinvested in the past. I think Joe Biden and his administration are investing a lot in this at the moment, and we're really trying to embrace that by building some of our manufacturing in North America to support this environment, and rolling out a lot of networking to connect unconnected communities and parts of cities even. This is another big initiative, and again, mission critical networks, you might say they're not, but actually this is human significant, right? This is impacts on education, right? Giving the access to education for everybody as a basic human right, etc. So a lot of critical work happening there as well. One other example I'll give you, which again is kind of interesting. In Belgium, the police force have they're building a project with us to put 30 industrial drones in place across the country.
Wow.
When I say industrial, these are outdoor, fully automated, fully recharging drones with special weight capacities, cameras, and all of the technology that support the police force in critical situations, whether it's a disaster situation or some kind of criminal situation. First government we've seen that are doing a countrywide kind of drone-based video surveillance service. So that's pretty cool. And again, another good example of how we're deploying, in this case, wireless technologies with drones to create an exciting new service.
That is brilliant. I had no idea. We have a lot to learn from the Europeans and their leading edge infrastructure. We like to think we're the mecca of all tech, but we're actually a little bit behind in a lot of areas in the US, despite our bravado, a little bit of arrogance there. But yeah, super exciting. What are you excited about over the next few weeks as things get back to in-person and event season starts in our industry? What are you looking forward to travel-wise, personally, professionally?
Yeah, and I'd probably reflect a little backwards. Since the pandemic, it has been great, of course, to connect with my team, with our customers and partners again. That's been a revelation. After 6 months on the road, I find myself needing to lose a bit of weight to mine. But no, looking forward, it's just I would say we see more opportunity than ever. There's talk of headwinds in the economy. headwinds in the market, inflation rates, blah, blah, blah. The connectivity world is on fire. I mean, it's literally, there's so many ideas to talk about with customers. There's so many partners that want to come on board and get involved. It's truly an exciting time. So yeah, I'm going to be traveling extensively for the rest of the year. We will try and get to every trade show and every customer we can, and Nokia's taking this part of our business very, very seriously at the moment. So yeah, exciting times, as I say, and thoroughly excited to be a part of this business.
Fantastic. Well, I hope to see you at one of the many industry events, whether it's like a Mobile World Congress Americas or Barcelona or one of the many places that we get together again these days. And thanks so much, Chris, for sharing, your vision and insight into areas in which I wasn't aware Nokia's involved. Very exciting. And thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to Chris on Twitter or LinkedIn or YouTube, comments, wherever, for any questions or feedback. Take care, Chris. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Evan.
All right. Bye, everyone.